The farmer who never gave up. In today's story, you will learn a powerful lesson about patience and resilience. You will see how difficult seasons test a person's strength. At the same time, you will improve your English naturally through clear storytelling. Listen carefully and feel the journey. Daniel Walker lived in a small rural town called Green Hollow. The town was surrounded by wide open fields and distant hills. Farming was the heart of the community. For Daniel, it was his entire world. His father had worked on the same land for decades. His grandfather had planted the first crops there. Daniel grew up watching golden wheat move with the wind. He believed the land would always protect his family. But that year, summer arrived earlier than usual. The heat was stronger than anyone expected. Weeks passed without a single cloud in the sky. The wind carried only dust across the fields. One early morning, Daniel stood alone in his field. The soil beneath his boots was cracked and dry. He bent down and picked up a handful of earth. It slipped through his fingers like powder. 3 months earlier, he had planted corn with confidence. He had taken a loan from the local bank. He bought high-quality seeds and expensive fertilizer. He believed this season would change everything. He had promised his wife, Sarah, that they would finally save money. He had promised his son, Ethan, a new bicycle. He believed hard work could defeat any challenge. But nature had different plans. Each evening, Daniel looked at the empty sky. He searched for dark clouds that never appeared. He waited for thunder that never echoed. Silence slowly replaced hope in his heart. At dinner one night, Ethan asked when the tall corn would grow again. His voice was innocent and hopeful. Daniel forced a small smile. Inside, he felt fear rising quietly. A week later, the bank manager called him. The repayment deadline was approaching quickly. If the harvest failed, penalties would increase the debt. Daniel felt pressure building inside his chest. He drove home slowly through the dry countryside. The empty fields reflected his worries. He felt responsible for every decision he had made. The weight of failure felt heavier each day. That night, Daniel sat alone on the wooden porch. The warm wind moved across the silent land. For the first time in years, he thought about quitting farming. The thought frightened him deeply. Sarah joined him quietly and sat beside him. She could sense his frustration and exhaustion. Daniel admitted he did not know how to fix the situation. He felt defeated and uncertain. Sarah held his hand gently and spoke calmly. She did not blame him for the drought. She simply said, "If you cannot change the weather, change your method." Her words stayed with him long after she finished speaking. Daniel could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about what Sarah had said. Waiting for rain would solve nothing. He needed to take action. The next morning, Daniel visited an older farmer named Thomas Reed. Thomas had survived many droughts in his lifetime. He listened carefully to Daniel's story. Then he offered practical advice. Thomas explained drip irrigation systems. They used small amounts of water directly at the roots of plants. They reduced waste and gave farmers more control. The system required effort but offered hope. He also suggested planting vegetables instead of corn. Vegetables needed less water and grew faster. They could survive difficult conditions better than wheat. The idea sounded risky but logical. Daniel returned home deep in thought. Change meant selling assets and learning new skills. It meant stepping into uncertainty. But doing nothing meant certain failure. The next day, Daniel made a difficult decision. He sold his old pickup truck to buy irrigation pipes. The truck held many memories of family trips. But survival mattered more than sentiment. Daniel worked from sunrise to sunset. He installed pipes carefully across the dry land. He dug narrow trenches under the hot sun. His hands became rough and blistered. Some neighbors watched with doubt in their eyes. They whispered that his effort was useless. They believed nothing could grow without rain. Daniel ignored their words and kept working. At night, he continued learning. He watched farming tutorials online. He read about soil health and water management. He wanted to understand every detail. He planted tomatoes, peppers, and lettuce carefully. He adjusted the water flow each morning. He checked every plant with patience and care. Small progress gave him quiet strength. The first few weeks were disappointing. The plants looked fragile and uncertain. Fear slowly returned to his mind. Doubt tried to take control again. But Daniel refused to quit this time. He remembered Sarah's advice clearly. Effort was still within his control. He continued watering the roots carefully. One bright morning, Ethan ran toward the field excitedly. Small green leaves had appeared between the dry soil. They were tiny but alive. Hope slowly returned to Daniel's heart. Over the next few weeks, the vegetables grew stronger. The tomatoes turned red and healthy. The peppers became firm and bright. The field slowly came back to life. When harvest time arrived, Daniel worked carefully and calmly. The crop was not huge, but it was enough. It proved that change was possible. It proved that courage mattered. He took the vegetables to the town market early in the morning. Fresh produce was rare during drought. Buyers showed strong interest immediately. Daniel sold everything that day. He returned home with money in his pocket. It was not a fortune, but it brought relief. Sarah saw confidence in his eyes again. He had not given up. Neighbors who once doubted him began asking questions. They wanted to know about drip irrigation. Daniel shared his knowledge generously. He felt grateful, not proud. Slowly, he repaid part of his loan. He saved money carefully for the future. He diversified his crops to reduce risk. He became wiser through experience. Months later, dark clouds finally appeared in the sky. Thunder echoed across Green Hollow. Rain touched the dry soil once again. Daniel stood quietly in his field. This time, he did not feel desperate. He felt prepared and confident. He had learned to adapt instead of waiting. Strength had replaced fear. Years later, Ethan asked about that difficult season. Daniel smiled thoughtfully at the memory. He remembered the cracked soil and silent nights. But he also remembered his decision. He told his son that strong people are built in hard times. Failure is not the end of the journey. Growth often begins in discomfort. Courage begins with one small step. Life will test your patience again and again. Some seasons will feel empty and hopeless. But giving up will never create growth. Keep learning and keep trying. Even dry land can turn green again. Even silent fields can return to life. Resilience grows from action. And the hardest season can shape your strongest self.